Good afternoon and welcome to Xposure Sports Sunday Sit-Down series. Today's featured guest is Coach Maurice Jones from Phillip High School, the SoMeck Coach of the Year. When I heard about the opportunity to get to interview you, I was really excited because Coach Maurice Jones and I have a lot in common. We're both from South Carolina and growing up in Greenwood, South Carolina. I know he grew up in Sumter, South Carolina. So I guess we'll just start there. Could you tell us a little bit about growing up in Sumter, South Carolina, some of the things you were exposed to, and some of the things that kind of steered you to the career path that you've chosen?
Really growing up in Sumter, South Carolina, a very rural part of South Carolina, is really not much to do at all, but play sports or find some sort of physical activity game to play, because inside those summers it's real hot, and pretty much we had to stay outside, so we kind of thought about ways to entertain ourselves, and sports was the main way for us to entertain ourselves.
Okay. So as far as, I guess, you said sports, when did you start to kind of gravitate towards, I guess, some of the sports that you've been involved in or that you've got coaching experience in?
I just remember, actually my dad was a varsity basketball coach. That was his first job coming out of college. My mom was a middle school girls coach for about 15 years or so. And I can remember being, a young kid sitting on her bench, aggravating her, just trying to figure out, what was going on, why was it going on, why was she, yelling certain directives at the girls and, play defense or rebound or whatever. And that kind of, I guess that seed of coaching was planted, way back when.
Okay. So that was your first exposure to coaching. So at what point did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
It just got to a point where me just being around it so much so, and sitting watching games with my mom, with my grandma, with my dad, and them growing up being huge North Carolina fans and huge Georgetown fans, and me just kind of being out and doing certain things on the basketball court. For some reason, everything out on the court, I felt a certain way about if things didn't go right. And I think now looking back on it, it was a competitive edge I had towards the game, and that's when I kind of just decided, okay, I want to be good at this thing because everybody around me tends to like it, so I might as well just try to put forth the effort to kind of learn a little bit more about the game.
Okay. So I do know, I guess, about your career. I know you played at Sumter High School. You went on to Anderson College, which is now Anderson University. You played basketball for 4 years there. Tell me about some of the experiences that you were able to gain playing there, some of the things that you learned, some of the things that college basketball taught you.
For one, it was a different level. Going from a small town high school to actually a small town college as well, but just the physicality of playing basketball at that level, the mental aspect of it, and also the academic portion of it, because time management was key there. I had to grow up. You had to grow up quick. You had to, pretty much compete at that level day in and day out, and because pretty much a scholarship or somebody else was coming to take your spot, so you kind of had to produce day in and day out every day.
Right. So, playing collegiate sports really forces kids to kind of grow up, because you understand that you are replaceable and that you have to excel. There's certain things you have to do in order to kind of grow into a system, and that's great information. So, playing basketball at Anderson University, I know you got a lot of good experience. You're talking about time management, different skills that you were able to acquire, different things that you learned. So, I guess finishing up your years at Anderson, I know you probably were exposed to different coaching philosophies, different coaching styles. At what point did you decide that maybe this is something I want to do? Maybe I want to coach when I get out of college.
From just going through those years, and the crazy part about it is, it's kind of funny. As much as I was exposed to basketball, exposed to sports, basketball, growing up, when I graduated, I did not want to go into coaching. I know I wanted to be around athletics. I didn't want to go into coaching. But for some reason, I noticed from going to camps, I remember that summer graduating, I worked a couple basketball camps at Winthrop, a couple at UNC Charlotte. I just noticed how, and it bugged me, watching kids play and looking at how far off their fundamentals were. And from that point on, I just said, let me try to go into coaching at the high school level and try to, right some of these wrongs I'm seeing on a small scale, and maybe it can help one or two kids down the line. And that's when it kind of snowballed into me wanting to be a really good coach from teaching kids at a certain age to where they can possibly gain a college scholarship someday.
That's awesome. That's awesome because you see so many coaches these days, and everybody, of course, is put in a situation where they're forced to win as soon as possible. But a lot of times they don't really look at it, I think, from the grand scheme of things, where you're really investing into someone's life. And I see that you really grasp that, and I'm pretty sure that's something that your players and also their parents really appreciate about you. So at what point, I guess, beyond coaching, at some point you have to realize that this is somewhat of a mentoring opportunity to kind of mentor and mold some of these young athletes that you're coaching. And tell me a little bit about how you were able to develop your style or your philosophy. What are some things that come to mind that you share with players to kind of, of course, make them be successful in your system, but also be successful outside of the court or the field?
Now, the guys laugh and joke with me all the time. Every day is always something different. And the mantra that we use all the time is protect the brand. I try to get them to recognize first their last name is a brand. When you look at Nike, at Samsung, those are very valuable brands. You have to look at yourself as an individual as a brand, and you want to protect that brand always on and off the court. And that big umbrella pretty much take care of the academics and take care of how you behave in school, how you behave outside of school. So it pretty much that small mantra pretty much covers a multitude of things kids tend to not tend to think about. And that's why protect the brand. If they think that at one point that they may not be doing something the right way, then they'll always hit in the back of the head, am I protecting the brand? Or they can kind of check each other, are you protecting the brand? From an on the court standpoint, my philosophy basically is adaptability. In life, sometimes things may not always go the way you want them to go, but you got to be adaptable. On the court, exact same way. Things may not go exactly how we scheme for or how we game plan for, but you got to be able to adapt to any kind of situation across the board. And they see, from off the court and on the court, being adaptable, being versatile, just being able to, fight through adverse situations.
Okay, good. And I can tell that your players are really buying into that concept. Luckily I had an opportunity to see quite a few of your games this year. A lot of close ones, down to the wire type games, and it's just when you were talking just now, kind of took me back to a game in particular. I think it was the Audrey Kell game where you guys, I guess, within the last seconds were able to pull off a victory. Can you walk me through exactly what you were saying or what was going on in that huddle, like prior to calling the timeout or in the huddle right before you guys came out? Tell me exactly, what were you saying to your players? What did you see in their eyes? And just tell me how you were able to be so successful in situations like that throughout the year.
That was pretty much the first real adverse situation we were placed in. I noticed in that first time out that the guys I didn't see a belief that, we were going to win. So I pretty much took the pressure out of the situation by just trying to tell a joke. And they kind of looked at me like I was crazy initially, but do you
remember what you said?
I really don't remember what I said. It was pretty much trying to break the ice, trying to get them to understand it's just a basketball game. It's not life or death. If we go out here and lose this basketball game, we still got to come right back the next day and practice and prepare for the next opponent. But in that situation, when I said that, they kind of laughed. The ice was broken. We went back out, and they were so relaxed where, basically it was almost like it was fun watching them go out and execute something that we've done since August. All the stadium steps we run, all the smash we run, and everything kind of came to a head in that one situation, and they were successful in it. And I believe that one game and that them being successful in that adverse situation pretty much helped us down the line being successful in those type situations multiple times this year.
Welcome back. We're here with Coach Maurice Jones from Phillip High School, and I had a question I wanted to ask you about basketball players here in the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina. You're growing up in South Carolina, you've seen a lot of basketball played, seen a lot of players, great players, collegiately and even professional NBA players. We even have a Hall of Famer in Alex English. But just here in North Carolina, the camps you've been involved in, and all the players that you've seen that have been able to take their game to the next level, what are some characteristics that you see that a lot of the players possess that has allowed them, in your opinion, to play at that level and go on to play, I guess, professionally and things of that nature?
Well, I noticed the biggest difference, and you kind of could attest to this, being from a rural town. Pretty much, it's a handful of guys who are pretty good. You constantly play against those same players over and over again, and then you kind of reach a ceiling of how good the handful of you get because you're only playing against each other. I've noticed coaching in Charlotte, being in North Carolina, being in this area, it's a melting pot of talent. From North Charlotte has a different style. The west side of Charlotte has a different style. The south side and the east side, and these kids are constantly playing against one another and are getting better and exposed to a lot more of old guys coming back in, old college guys, old professional guys, and their skill sets tend to get a lot better at a lot younger age. But I've noticed the one thing that separates a lot of the guys that I've coached that played on the next level and even the professional level is whatever that it factor is, they tend to have it. And you can kind of compound that one it factor statement into mental toughness. Regardless of whatever happens on the court, off the court, they tend to just get it done. And probably about 10, 15 guys I've coached that have played at the next level, at a high level, or even at the professional level, all of them had that one thing in common. They pretty much were really tough enough to get the workouts, to get their work done academically, and to just kind of fight through any kind of adversities on or off the court.
Okay. And I think it's key that you say mental toughness, because not only do you have to be mentally tough as a player, you also have to be mentally tough as a coach.
Right.
And I mean, I know, of course, sometimes you're playing, your team is on a stretch of wins, you're on a roll, but there may be times when you're on a stretch or roll of defeats as well. Like, how do you come home and be able to process that? I know you have a family now. What are some things that you do to get you mentally prepared for the next game after experiencing a tough loss?
Pretty much just back to the drawing board. First and foremost, it's still just a basketball game. And I tell the guys all the time, I use this analogy a lot. I tell the guys, okay, when you're an adult, you have a family, let's say, we use a hypothetical situation. What if you lose your job? What do you do next? Do you kind of pack it in and just go homeless, or do you just kind of suck it up and say, okay, this next day I'm going to put in a job application after job application, or I'm going to go on this interview, I'm going to try to do the next best thing other than just kind of folding and saying, I can't do it anymore. Because pretty much we've kind of adopted the philosophy life goes on. Nobody really cares, because the guy that tends to just kind of fold it up or, kind of pack it up and that guy is not successful in life, and that guy is not successful in sports. So that's what I kind of keeps me driven. Every day after every day, just kind of no matter what goes on, it's just a game, and I got to kind of keep marching forward.
I think that's a great way to look at, a great outlook for you to have. And I guess the next thing we want to kind of go into is the future. Right. The future of Coach Maurice Jones. I mean, I know you had an opportunity to coach at a lot of successful programs here in North Carolina. Where do you see yourself in the future? I mean, I know you enjoy player development. Is high school something that you see yourself being in long term, or have you considered collegiate coaching at the college level? What are your thoughts on that at this point?
Right now, I mean, like you said, you touched on, I have a family. Tried being a director of basketball operations at Sitdown down in Charleston for a year. And that grind is pretty rough, a lot of long hours, and I kind of had to, put in perspective what's important right now. And, pretty much it's all about family right now, and being at the high school level pretty much gives me the flexibility and the leeway to kind of help raise my kids, be around my family, and still do something I love, which is coach basketball. Now, down the line, right now I can say I'm content with doing what I'm doing, just for the simple fact of I still have that chip on my shoulder of not liking the way kids are being taught how to play basketball from a fundamental skill development standpoint. And I guess I'm just on a crusade of trying to right wrongs in basketball is what I'm seeing right now. Okay. So you're like basketball savior. Yeah. You're like high school basketball savior. I wouldn't say basketball savior, but
in a sense, right?
If you want to call it that.
Okay. No, that's awesome, because the thing about it is you see so many players, even the ones that are high profile, that play high school basketball. They go to some of the well-known colleges. They're only there for a year. Then they're off to the pros. And one of the things that's a common factor that they lack is fundamentals.
Right.
They're not taught the fundamentals, and they play so much off of their pure athleticism with it, which is great. But at some point, the fundamentals are really going to be very necessary. And I think if you're able to kind of really instill those in kids at the level in which you're coaching, that does so much for the game right now. So I just want to say, thank you for what you've been able to bring to the sport. It's been a pleasure interviewing you today. We look forward to nothing but big things this upcoming year. I'm sure your players are excited about getting back on the court, and I know there's a lot that you have in store for them. So thank you again.
Thank you.